Hey guys, Anthony Ross here again with loopmasters.com, making a quick how-to tutorial on some deep house chords, some ones that I've used on my own records. Before I show you those, I made a quick couple drum loops, or just using a couple quick drum loops from one of the Loopmasters Groove Tech sample CDs. Just sounds as simple as this. Just a kick loop. Big open hat and a vocal. Simple as that. Now the deep house patch, it didn't massive, sounds like this. And then I just have the little offbeat bass. That's a sine wave and massive down here. Sounds like this. Don't have sidechain on anything right now, and totally up to preference right now. There seems to be a bit of a backlash against using sidechain, especially for heavy pumping. If you're just using it for mixing, that's fine. For the deep house stuff, you don't hear a ton of it pumping. You just hear most of it on the offbeats, or really kind of reverbed and delayed out. So the deep house chord is just a patch I made. Should probably save this before everything crashes on me. All I did was, for the first oscillator, I went to classic, which is under the analog electric section down here. I detuned it just a bit. You don't always want everything perfect in pitch, just sounds a little bit too robotic. Put a second oscillator in disto, which is just right under classic and analog electric, and detuned it the other way just a tad again. They're both just going to filter 1, which is the DAF filter. It has its own character to it. You could play with different filter types. I thought DAF and Scream sounded the best. I thought the other low passes weren't giving it enough color. I pushed the resonance up a bit. Simple as that. There's absolutely nothing else going on in the voicing or anywhere else. The only thing I added were effects. I added a bit crusher at the bottom. A lot of the old deep house records are based off samples, vinyl samples, or old 70s, 80s recordings. Again, just bit crush to give it kind of that tape, warm, old feel. And I added Massive's regular reverb. I think if you use a third-party reverb, you probably get a little bit better of effect. If I take it off, you can hear what it sounds like. Obviously reverb is much needed for a sound like this. I'll show you the bit crusher too, so you can kind of hear what it does. Sounds very clean. Some people might prefer that. If I add the bit crusher, sounds like I just recorded a vinyl, huh? Okay, and then I just added a chorus again to give it a little bit more space, a little bit more width. The notes are pretty important. A lot of the chords people used to sample were from R&B records, disco records, which are usually pretty complex in the chords. They're not always just simple triads. We have just a G minor 7th here with an inversion on it. I have the 5th down in the bottom. And then here I have an E flat minor 7th. With the 7th down at the bottom, and I just played with this until it sounded right. As far as the inversions go, there's no right or wrong. You just need to play with it. So the other thing I was going to show you guys was, that's one way to do it, to program in a synth. The other thing is, once you have the sound down, would be to record it. Oops, an audio channel. To be recording it down. And let me show you what that would sound like. Again, I just chose resampling. Basically what resampling does, it's an input that allows you to record anything that goes through the master. And right now on the master I just have a limiter, so there are no peaks, no clipping. Let me record this down. Okay, that's enough. So now, what I'm going to do is, if you were to record this, or like the old days, and put it on an MPC or put it into a sampler, all you have to do now in Ableton is grab this, make sure your MIDI track's open, grab the audio file, and just drag it down. Oops. There we go. And it'll load it right into Simpler for you. I'm going to mute the recording and the original synth. Now it's playable in a sampler. Push up the volume a bit, it defaults to -12, which is back to 0. And now what you have the capability to do, let's make a new MIDI file for our sampler. Now it's going to default to C3, that's fine. I'm not so concerned with that right now. But if we go like this, I have no idea what this is going to sound like. I should have tried this before I hit record, huh? So yeah guys, that is Deep House Chords number 1. I'm going to do a whole tutorial on a whole different kinds of chords for house music. Something I personally have spent a ton of time on, from sampling to recreating them like this, to bouncing them into audio, to putting into Simpler later. You can see how many different kinds of chord types you can make with that. Now putting it into samplers or Simpler or whatever you're using, Contact, it definitely has a unique tone to it by pitching it down, different than if you were to put the notes differently in here. And that's one thing you need to take a listen for. If your chords that you're trying to emulate or trying to make don't always sound perfect, as a keyboard player would play them, there's chances are it could be sampled down, and that's something to play around with. So again guys, Anthony Ross, check me out at soundcloud.com/Anthony Ross, and look back for more of these videos on loopmasters.com. Talk to you guys soon.